We've been growing our own corn for a few years now, making cornmeal, corn flour, and grits. Did you know over 90% of the corn grown in the United States is genetically modified? So if you're interested in growing your own food, being more sustainable, and eating clean, hey, you better buckle up because we're fixing to show you how it's done. When you're making cornmeal, grits, or corn flour, you need to go field corn, not sweet corn. Sweet corn we grow and we eat it in what we call the milking stage. Field corn, we let mature out on the stalk there and we let it dry. Then we harvest it as a hard grain. Now the type that I like to grow is heirlooms. I'm a big fan of heirloom field corns. To me, they just have a deeper, more complex flavor to them. Simply just taste better. And I think they're easier to grow. Heirlooms, in my humble opinion, are a lot less finicky than some of the new hybrids. They're more drought resistant, they're more insect resistant, and they're just easier to grow. So that's the reason I particularly like to grow heirloom corns. My two favorites is Jimmy Red and Hickory King. Now there's a lot more of them out there, but that just happens to be my two favorites. Now on field corn, I normally just grow one crop per year. Unlike sweet corn, I can get a spring and a fall crop in on sweet corn. But field corn, I plant in spring after the danger of frost passes. And then I let it grow on out and let it dry on the stalk there, and then I harvest it, so one crop per year. I normally plant on 30 to 36 inch row spacing, and in my row spacing, anywhere from 8 to 12 inches apart seems to be the ideal spacing there. Of course, I like to use drip tape because I can put that water right underneath the stalk there and my plants never stress. And corn, if you've never grown it before, it takes a lot of fertilizer, so you want to make sure that you keep those plants fed well. When do you harvest your field corn? Well, you want it to dry on the stalk as much as possible. Ideally, what you want is a 25% moisture level in that corn or less. Now, if you live in an agriculture area, your county extension office probably got one of those fancy machines that the commercial farmers use so it can measure the moisture content in your corn and tell you exactly when to harvest. I don't have that luxury, so I kind of have to wing it. When my field corn dries out and some of the ears start turning upside down, for me, it's time to harvest. So I normally just pull it off the stalk at this point, and I like to shuck mine when I'm in the patch here. That's up to you whether you want to do it now or do it later. And you see there I got a nice ear of corn. Now that ear of corn there needs to be 25% or less. So if it's not quite dried out to what I think it should be, then I'm gonna lay it up on a rack somewhere and let it dry a little bit more, but that one looks pretty good. Now I've noticed with this Jimmy Red corn, the darker it is, the more dried out it seems to be. Now that's a pretty good ear of corn there. I always keep me 2 buckets here. And those 2 buckets I got right there is for good reason. If I'm going through there harvesting my corn and I run across one that the bugs have gotten into, that one there still looks pretty good, then I put it in my other bucket, and you know what? I'm gonna use that for chicken feed so that nothing goes to waste. Now that one right there, I think the bugs have gotten into a little bit. See how they've eaten, see the white part there? Sometimes the weevils will eat into it even more than that. When the husk is kind of torn away there at the top, the insects might have got into it a little bit more. See the dusting in there? That tells me that the weevils are in there pretty good. So I may want to cull that one back to chicken food as well. I keep my best ears to grind for my cornmeal and my grits and my corn flour. Well, if you're having a wet year or you feel like your corn just ain't dried out enough yet for shelling, you can put it in a spot and let it dry out a little bit more, and that's what I do a lot of times. Now I use my greenhouse because the greenhouse is an ideal place to do this because it's out of the rain. I got good air circulation there and I still got that sunlight so I can dry the corn out. If you don't have a greenhouse, you can probably put it somewhere else like underneath your barn or wherever, but you got to keep it out of the rain. You need that air circulation there. Now I like to husk mine before I let it dry out. Seems to work a lot better and it dries out a lot quicker. So I just leave it up here on the bench for a few days and let it continue on to dry out till I get ready to shell it. Now it's time to shell the corn. Well, years ago, I built this box and got this sheller here. The box works pretty good. Now I built this box out of reclaimed lumber. I probably wouldn't recommend using treated lumber, but I did use some old reclaimed lumber, and I keep it out of the weather so it doesn't decay on me. My corn sheller right here, I bought that at a flea market in Cleveland, Georgia, probably 25 years ago. You can still find these things around in some rural areas at some flea markets or maybe on eBay and find them in good working order. There are some new ones out there made in China that you can buy off of Amazon, I think. I don't have any experience with them. They look real similar to this one right here, but Lord have mercy, I don't know how old this one is, but it still works really good. I just try to keep it cleaned up a little bit and keep it out of the weather when not in use. But having it mounted on this box right here is really nice because it don't wiggle around or walk off on you. So as you can see right here, I notched in and I got this thing permanently mounted to this box. So that's the only thing I use this box for, is to shell corn out. Now let's get at it. Now the way you know your corn's dry enough to shell is it gets with the shell off real easy. See how easy that comes off there? That tells me that corn is dry enough. If it didn't come off or it was a little bit spongy there and it just wanted to wiggle around, I knew that corn wasn't dry enough and I was going to have to leave it for a few days and get some more moisture out of it. See how easy that shells? That's perfect right there. I just dumped my corn in the box there and put it in my sheller and get started. Now this right here is called a corn ejector right here, and after it gets through shelling that corn, it's supposed to throw that cob up here so it's easy to eject out. Now in any of these old shellers here, it might not get it 100%, so sometimes if there's one or two left on there, I'll just take my hand and finish shelling it off. Take my cobs, throw them in the bucket. Here we go again. The sheller here has got a spring on there that you can tighten or you can loosen, and what that spring is for is to accommodate for different size cobs. See how the two different size cobs right there? Now I normally don't adjust mine a lot, but if you run this small one through there, it might not shell as well, and there's gonna be a few of these right here you may have to finish up hand shelling. See, it did a pretty good job, but there's a few on there it didn't get. So there's a little debris left in there after we shell it, some leftover silks and stuff, and we're going to use a fan to clean it up. So if you need to clean it again, you can simply just move your fan a little closer, get your wind a little stronger, but that looks pretty good right there. So we got a corn shelled. Now I like to store it in the whole kernel there instead of go ahead and grinding it up. I only grind it as I need it. Now we've got to store this in a way that the weevils won't get to it. Now the commercial farmers either spray it with a pesticide or either they fumigate it, but we don't have that luxury as being homesteaders. So a good solution that is I'm gonna put it in a pillowcase and I'm gonna put it in the freezer. And as I need it, I'm gonna pull it out and get out what I need. Eating clean and eating healthy. Making cornmeal and grits with our heirloom corn. Well, we store our corn in a pillowcase in the freezer, and we store it whole kernel, just like we shell it. and we take enough out and we grind just what we need for that week. We seem to think the corn holds its flavor better when you store it as whole kernel and you have it in the freezer, and you just pull out and grind what you need. Now after we grind, we'll put it in a Ziploc bag and we'll keep that in the freezer for a couple of weeks, but we try not to grind no more than what we're going to use up within a week or two. So we just scoop out of here what we think we're going to need for the next week or two. Now this tabletop grinder is what we use, and there's several different brands of these out there. Now these are nice because they don't take up a lot of room, and you can just pull it out and grind what you need, and you can store it back without taking up a lot of room. Now this particular brand is called Cornmeal. There's several others out there, but this one's made in Germany, and I'm pretty familiar with this brand. We used to sell them back in the day, but we don't sell them anymore. Pretty sure you can buy them off of Amazon. What I like about this one, it is stones. It has stones inside it that actually grinds the corn. There's some of them out there that use steel burrs, but I'm a fan of the stones. The stones is the same process that was used back in the day, the old stone grist mills. There are some out there that use steel burrs. I'm not a huge fan of those. I prefer to use the stone burr type, such as the Cornmeal. So that's what I like to use. And this is a pretty good model right here. Like I said, there's others out there that's probably just as good. I don't have experience with any others. I do have experience with this one here, and it has served us well. So we're making cornmeal and corn grits. What is the difference between grits and cornmeal? Well, they're the same thing. They're made from the corn ground up. It's just sifted differently. It's different particle size. So we're actually going to do a grinder, and then we will separate the particle size, and that we will have grits on one side as a bigger particle size, and we will have cornmeal as a smaller particle size. On the Cornmeal, there's an adjustment right here that you can move to set the settings on the mill of how fine you want the grind to be. And we've got ours set up so that we get pretty much equal amounts of grits and cornmeal, which is perfect for us. If you wanted to do flour, which is the finest grind of anything, then you would want to set this down so it ground a lot finer, and then you would sift out that corn flour. We got a corn ground, now it's time to sift it and separate the cornmeal from the corn grits. Now we've got 2 or 3 different sifters we use, but this has become my favorite as of lately just because it's so doggone easy. This is just a sifter here. You've probably seen these in the antique stores before. These things have been used for generations and generations, and you can still buy them new. It's just a little sifter there. You got a screen in it. You turn the little agitator there, and it agitates the corn and then lets it sift out and separate. All right, I've sifted it down, so I'm going to take what's left in the top and pour in this bowl, and that's going to be my grits right there. All right, so the finer screening I have right here is cornmeal. Cornmeal is what we use to make cornbread. Also, we use cornmeal to bread our okra and our fish when we fry them. Now this is grits. This is a little bigger off the screen there, just a little bigger size right here. We can use this like it is, or we can screen it down again, or if we wanted more cornmeal, we could reset our grinder and regrind this down to get a smaller particle size, and then we could resift it again and get way more cornmeal. Well, I'm gonna screen my grits down to get a real consistent size for my grits. Now this is a homemade sifter I made years ago, and it's got stainless steel wire in it. I don't remember exactly what size wire that is, but this is the one to use to sift your grits out and separate the bigger particle size from your grit size here. I bought this from Meadows Mill out of North Carolina. They sell this stainless steel screen here, and you can make you a little box to sift with. So I'm gonna sift it out, and what I got left over on my big size is up here. I can either regrind it and resift it for cornmeal and grits, or we'll just use it for chicken feed. All right, so I've screened it twice. I got my cornmeal here, which is almost perfect here. Now I got a real consistent grit right here. And then we got a bigger size here, which is our largest, and we could regrind that, but we're just gonna use that for chicken feed. So we grind what we're gonna need for the next couple of weeks here, and we just put it in these Ziploc bags, and we're gonna put it in the freezer. That way we can take out and use just what we need. Now a little tip of making your fresh grits here. Now these ain't no instant grits that you buy in the grocery store. They're gonna take a little bit of preparation. So what we do is we put them in water and we soak them overnight, and they'll be swelled up tomorrow. Then we're gonna pour off the excess water, then they're ready to cook. Now when you put those grits in that water, you're gonna have some husk that float to the top. We just take a skimmer here and skim that off and put that in the bowl. We're gonna feed that to the chickens as well. There's nothing more satisfying than growing your own food, grinding your own cornmeal, making your own grits, eating clean, being sustainable. Nothing added to this, all natural goodness right there. Clean eating at its best. Grow your heirloom corn and make your own groceries.